Corso and Catone.
I think well, listen, Mark, listen, hold on. When I say, would you have caffeine today?
What the hell is that up to, then?
Presented by Special Sauce Podcast, Studio 42 Design, and Corso Law Group. Now for the real deal New England feel, Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here. Joe is in the booth, and you're with us watching on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, or wherever you podcast. You can catch us, and if you want to listen to us live, you can do that on Podbean. And of course, give us a call, 855-313-PATS, our heated hotline, 24/7. Leave us a message. Joe's picking the one he wants to play, so let's let that one be yours. 855-313-7287. Got a good one today in Weekly Rewind. We're going to talk Super Bowl 57, break that down, go back a little bit, look at these teams and the matchups. And, of course, in that Sunday spread, we're going to have our locks of the week. We got some interesting prop bets today, Mark, we want to talk about. So, some good value picks in Sunday spread. So stick around for that. And, of course, Catone's comments. You never want to miss that. Get ready for that later on in the show. And B's and C's, where the Celtics stand now after the trade deadline, and Bruins are getting ready for their second half. So we're going to talk all about that. But, hey, before we do that, we want to hear from one of you in the nation in Heated Hotline. Joe, let's have that.
Oh, wait, first, I got something for you.
Well, Chris, I guess there's no mystery, right, of what Heated Hotline must be about, because he likes to surprise us every week. That's going to be it.
I had that one in the archives. It was perfect.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it, Joe. Come on.
Hey, guys, this is Tony from Providence. So it's crap about Brady has Belichick on his podcast saying everyone is trying to divide them, and they've always been together on things. Really? Then why did you leave, Tom? Didn't you leave the fifth when asked if you appreciated it in New England? I'm sick of these guys doing whatever they need in order to make money and toying with our emotions. What do you think? Thanks.
Tony
in Providence. Thank you, Tony, for that call. Wow. He puts it's a short message, Mark, but he puts a lot in there, doesn't he?
He does.
So toying with the fans' emotions. I agree. Don't you agree with that? Stop toying with our friggin' emotions. Brady versus Belichick still. And that's why you named it that, Joe, isn't it? Our show this week.
Oh, I mean, over and over and over again. I'm like, the dead stories, these stories. I don't understand. They keep going over.
They're never dead. They're never dead. Mark, he's got points here. Huh?
Never dead. Listen, the call is 100% right. It's all about money, obviously, right? So Brady's not, this is it for Brady. He really is retired. Like I heard some other crackpots this week. Well, we could come back in July. He's not, listen, this is it. That's why Bill was on. This is about money. If he's going to come back for his brand, coming back into the fold and being part of the New England community and, in doing things for the organization publicly and different things, that's what's going to make him money, the Kraft's money. So he's not stupid. He knows what he's doing. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was hurt. The call is 100% right. There is some history there. Yes. I don't think it was as bad as people want you to believe, Chris. I think, listen, if in 2017 and 2018, Kraft said to Belichick, we're giving him $50 million for 2 years, he would have stayed. As much as him and Belichick maybe didn't always get along, he would have stayed. I think he was more hurt at Kraft than Belichick because Kraft didn't intervene.
Well, there's something to be said for that because, hey, look, you know me, you know what I do. I'm about the evidence, right? I'm about what we have in front of us versus what we speculate to. So, look, he didn't show up at Kraft's 80th birthday or something like that when he was invited. So, okay, that this telling that maybe he was upset with Kraft. talking about being appreciated, and he pleads the fifth, as the caller mentioned. I don't know if that's directed at Brady, if that's directed at Kraft or Belichick. But then he shows up at his wedding, at Kraft's wedding. So clearly that trip to New England with Tampa, now Kraft's meeting with him was cameras everywhere. I mean, that was all done for a purpose.
But that meeting with
Belichick's
Kraft, but Chris, the meeting with Kraft, I think, yes, it was for show, it was for cameras. But you're not going to tell me that he didn't meet with Kraft while he was there privately at some point that day. Yeah. Before there was a night game. At some point before that game, I'm sure that day he met with Kraft privately somewhere and they hashed it out. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish your thought.
No. That's right. Listen, the private meeting and the meeting he had with Belichick for 20 minutes, that obviously went a long way too. But look, the caller is right. I mean, Tony's right. This is all about business. This is all about money. I mean, this is all about where am I going? I mean, he's on this pod. Don't you think for one second that having Belichick on a podcast, when the hell has that ever happened? Having Belichick on a podcast.
Just happened to be Super Bowl week.
Right.
Just happened to be Super Bowl week.
Right. The views go through the roof. The sponsors are all happy about it. I mean, so there's money to be made there. But breaking down, and I agree with you, all the things. I mean, Belichick took a gamble. He took a football gamble, and he lost.
He did.
He lost for the one season. Now, Brady in New England for 2 more years.
I don't know if he lost for one season, Chris.
Well, I mean, I'm saying I think last season Brady's performance did dip a little. I think he was more of a 2019. I'm checked out because I don't like this team and I don't like the people I'm around. I think he did realize what he had in coaching. I really do.
Well, his comment brought that up. His comment said it, right?
Yeah. He said, I've learned everything, obviously those two. And if you listen to that podcast, go back and listen to it. Belichick gets more comfortable as it goes on. First, you see he's a little, but then he gets more comfortable. And I think it's true. I think they really do feel that way, But the one thing about Belichick is you notice with him, once a player is done, then you hear him start to, really get comfortable talking to the player. He does. Talk about the Chris, everybody's trying to divide them.
But Chris, listen, Brady said, this is one clip. He says, I know he respected me for the job that I did, and I certainly did the same. And I think even when you go away from each other, you respect each other probably that much more. I certainly did, because I realized the commitment that he was trying to make to get our team to win. What does that tell you?
Yeah, you tell me. What does it read?
Character.
There it is. There it is. Darth Vader down there with that thing on.
Basically, he's saying he didn't have that commitment out of those guys in Tampa, those coaches, right?
No, and it just got worse. Progressively worse. Yeah, and so he had more of a 2019 season like he was with the Patriots last year, this past season, than – so, you're really talking about 2 years of that you could have had him around more, and you probably would have yielded it. You say, well, it would have yielded a Super Bowl, but would they have put enough guys around him to do it? I mean, he clearly didn't have enough to do it with McDaniels and what they had, and they had nothing. But talk about the everybody. He says everybody seems to be trying to divide us, and we. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he said everybody's trying to divide us, but we always have been together on things, trying to move together forward. What do you think of that comment? Who's trying to divide them? Who?
First of all, nobody's trying to divide them. There was obviously, as the years went on, listen, they were together 20 years, Chris. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. There's going to be times where you disagree with me. I disagree with you. I mean, you're married. I'm married. You're together 20 years. You don't always agree with what the other person is saying or doing. You're going to get aggravated. You're going to get frustrated. And I think there were times that Brady wanted probably more control over maybe players coming in, offensive scheme. And that's not Bill. Bill's not going to give that to a player, no matter how great you are. So, yeah, they butted heads at times. Absolutely they did. They were together for 20 years. But was there friction at the end? Absolutely. I don't think anybody created that or manufactured that. It was there. But the bottom line is, if Bob Kraft intervenes and says, Bill, we're giving him Drew Brees' contract, 2 years for 50, he finishes his career here. No matter how much tension, disagreement, whatever was going on between him and Belichick, if Kraft intervenes and says, you're giving him a 2-year contract with a 3rd-year option, Brady retires a Patriot. Plain and simple. And that's what I get pissed off about. All this garbage that these people are all saying about how bad it was. Listen, no, it wasn't that bad. All Kraft had to do was say, here's your contract. He would have signed it.
Yep.
So how bad could it have been?
Well, that's why Mark and I give Kraft so much crap about this, because he's the one with the pocketbook. He's the one with the checks. Belichick's not agreeing to a $50 million contract. You got to get owner approval for that. And Kraft had never had to pay. You go back. Kraft never had to open up the purse strings for Brady, especially for Brady, through the whole 20 years. The whole time he was here,
Chris,
he never had to do that.
Belichick
or anybody else,
is accountable. Really. Belichick is accountable for telling Kraft he's not worth $50 million anymore. Bill,
right.
He's on his
43.
His skills have diminished.
Right. And so and that's the thing. Now as far as Greg Bedard, who we have a ton of respect for, I really do. This one, I'm not sure I like this comment, but what he says is, look, about there in Patriot land, if you wanna believe in fairy tales and unicorns, then fine. You can believe what they're saying right now, that they've always been on the same page. And, they were never divided. And I agree with that part. Of course they were divided, as Mark just said. You articulated that fine. What I have a question about is, once things were getting like that, once Brady had a little, because he did that Tom versus time, and that was in there. There was all undertones of this in there, in that entire piece. Again, a moneymaker, conflict breeds interest. Sure. Which breeds revenue. I mean, that's how it works. Everything is calculated.
Yep.
Did the family, do you think, because what he also goes on to say is, thank God for Tom Sr., meaning Tom Sr. is going to give you all the truth of everything. Okay. Yeah. My question to you is, you're talking about dividing, okay? People that are dividing, fans, whatever, media. What the family, how kind of role do you think the family had in this division, in this pulling apart, in this trying to get them out of there? What do you think?
Listen, I think Giselle.
And again, speculation, but
speculation. I think Giselle probably had more of a role in the tension than the father. I think the father, when it was over, was like what you and I would do for our own sons. You want to protect your son. You'll do anything for your son. You don't want to give my son a contract. He's the greatest player to ever play. Screw you. He wasn't respected, and you know what I mean? So that, yes, he's reacting like a father. And you and I would have reacted the same way, probably worse, right? But I think day to day, I think Giselle was wearing on him, because I don't think she even wanted him to play. Right, that was pretty obvious, and I don't think she liked living in New England. Listen, she's living outside of Miami. It's with all the glamour and the models and the runways and the strips and all this. All of a sudden her world. All of a sudden she's back modeling, right? So she didn't want to stay in friggin' New England. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Just listen to the past 50 Catone's comments, and you'll realize who the hell
why she didn't want to stay in New England. She didn't like the foliage, she didn't like the change of seasons and all that. Now, Mark, listen, I agree. When you talk about what we do for our kids, I don't think either one of us would come out on camera and do anything like that, because I think that's a little, unless our kid wanted us to, unless it was strategic and all that. But I think you and I are built a little different than Tom Sr., which is why I don't like that he did that. I don't think I would do that. Obviously, if asked, absolutely, I agree. You protect your, if asked the question, I guess we have to. But I'm not making those comments unless Tom is wanting me to or approving that. The thing about it, though, is, you figure he was under Tom Sr.'s. This is interesting, Mark. Till about 18 or so, he's in the house or whatever. He's getting taught by his parents, whatever. He's a Belichick. He was under Belichick's thumb as basically a parent for longer.
Yeah. No, he was. He
for
was
20 years. Look, we don't know. Nobody knows what went on behind closed doors. All these things that the shows, the radio shows and everything, that's all good for business. Everything's good for business. So remember out there, everything you're listening to, except this, listen to this. This is the one thing for this part. but
We're part of the same business, and we're talking about this too. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Well, yeah.
Well, Joe, Chris Felger on the flagship said this week he don't want Brady to retire because it's good for business.
It's good for business. At least he's honest. At least he's honest about it. But you have to understand out there, Tom versus time, the Jim Gray interview, I plead the fifth, coming on this podcast with Belichick the other day, all of these things and the things that they're saying within these programs are manufactured. They're thought of. They're thought about. They're for a purpose. Nobody knows what the hell went on behind closed doors. We don't know. Belichick could have been pleading with Kraft to keep him for all we know. I mean, we don't know. We don't know.
You're right. I don't think that was the case, but you're right.
I'm not naive. I'm not stupid. But the point is we don't know. All we know is what we hear. And it's our job to speculate. It's Felger and those guys' job to do that. And as annoying as it is at times. But yeah, I mean, and then talking about Joe, the last thing we'll talk about, Joe's favorite thing, his obsession, this one-day contract. Okay.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't either. But Chris Gasper comes out. This is what irritates me. And I told you this last week. I don't think it's going to happen either. But when asked about that situation, he talks about Brady owes them nothing. He's already given them 6 Super Bowls. That pisses me off, Mark.
Oh, here we go.
That pisses me off. As someone who's been in a locker room, that pisses me. I can't tell you how bad that pisses me off. No, he didn't give them 6 Super Bowls. Come on. How stupid? Casper's a little weasel anyway. Look at him. You think he's ever stepped on a field for any friggin' reason in his life? Think that little clown's ever been in a friggin' locker room where he's had to rely on somebody else that's next to him and put them faith in me that I'm next to them? Bullshit. That's never had to happen with a kid like that. Mark, what do you think of that? That pisses me off.
I agree. That's a shit comment. Listen, bottom line is this. I don't think he's going to sign a one-day contract for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think there's some provisions in his, believe it or not, in his contract in Tampa that would have to be worked out because he's not actually leaving to play somewhere else. There's a couple of weird clauses that were in his contract, protective clauses when he was with Tampa. Even though his contract is technically up, there's some stuff with that I would have to, you would have to read as an attorney, Chris, to tell us the actual truth. But the second piece of that is, listen, he left, he retired. You had a chance for him to retire a Patriot, and you didn't do it. So I think he's okay with mending fences and coming back into the fold. He had Belichick on his podcast. He'll show up when they give him the Patriot red jacket. I think this year, Kraft kind of already hinted at the fact they're going to do something at one of the games to celebrate him. And I think he'll show up for that game. I do. But as far as a one-day contract, I don't think Tom will, because I think you had your chance for me to retire a Patriot and you didn't do it. So I'll come back for all your celebrations. It's good image and money-wise for me, but I'm not going to come back for a one-day contract when you wouldn't give me the opportunity to retire here. I don't think that'll happen, Chris. Not because he owes you nothing, just because you had the opportunity to do it. You didn't do it. So now he won't do that, but he'll do the other stuff for you, I think, based on how they've mended fences.
So we want to hear from you in Heated Hotline. Let us know what you think. Great title, Joe. Brady versus Belichick still? And stay tuned, because I don't think this is over and more of this is coming. Heated Hotline was presented by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. CorsoLawGroup.com. Allow us to be your voice. Hey, when we come back, we're going to rewind. We're going to talk Super Bowl 57, Kansas City, Philly, talk about what they can do, break down that game, all of that and more right after this.
It's that time again for a timeout for a message from one of our sponsors. No one ever thinks they will be in the need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. CORSO Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people all across this great country who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. So whether it's a traffic ticket or if you need reduced DUI or more serious issues, call or go online to CorsoLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help you. Corso Law Group.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. And listen, we got Super Bowl 57 going on. Hey, right here in my backyard. Felger says it's a Mickey Mouse town. We'll see about that. We'll see what Mark has to say about that too, Mr. New England over there. And let's go weekly rewind and talk about it, Joe.
Going back through the week, about a weekly rewind.
So Super Bowl 57 getting ready to kick off tomorrow, 6:30 Eastern, 4:30 my time. Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles. It's still, I think, still think Philly's given up 1.5 still.
I think so,
I
yeah.
haven't checked it this morning. So, and we'll get to Sunday spread in a few minutes. But Mark, looking at this Super Bowl, talking about the breakdown and what we think is going to happen, we'll give our predictions in a minute. But you know, how do you see this one going? I mean, what are the keys to this for either one of them or each of them?
Well, so Philly, Chris, I think it's going to have to be the offensive line and defensive line, right? So Philly, listen, Philly should be able to run the ball on this team. I mean, I think that's one of the things we talked about last week when we talked about Cincinnati and we recapped that game, right? That Cincinnati should have been able to run the ball against that defense, right? And they didn't.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see Philadelphia run the ball, and that's going to set up Hurts and those receivers, and it's going to spread the field. So I think the offensive line and the defensive line, because Philly can get pressure on you with 4 guys. And if they can collapse that pocket and make Mahomes have to either stay in the pocket to throw the ball, Chris, or at least have to move and try to work that ankle, I think the key for Philly is both defensive lines, Chris. I really do.
Yeah, a lot of people saying that it's in the trenches. This game's in the trenches. I'll tell you something, though. Kansas City may have the best pass rusher between both the teams in Jones. You know, now everybody pump the brakes just a little bit on that because you have to understand. Everybody says, well, last week, 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati, look at the day Jones had. Well, one, as Mark points out, coaching had something to do with that on the Cincinnati end. There was a huge assist by the offensive coaching staff for Cincinnati to allow that to happen. And 2, you had 2 huge injuries on the offensive line for Cincinnati. They weren't the best to begin with anyway, but you are facing the best this week. This friggin' offensive line, as Mark said, for Philly, to me, is the best offensive line that Kansas City has had to face all year. That's right. That's what I said. All year long, not just in the playoffs, all year long. This is the best O-line. And I agree with Mark. Philadelphia's idea, and look, it's twofold. You want to run the ball, and there can be different types of runs. You know, and by now, you know, injuries at this point, you know, Mahomes' injury, hurts his shoulder, you know, these guys are just the adrenaline alone. Forget what they're putting inside them to get ready. It's a Super Bowl. It's not going to matter. You may see some good design runs by Hurts. You may see Devontae Smith running the ball from the backfield or some different things that you haven't seen out of Philly yet that incorporate that offensive line and that running game to loosen things up to be able to hit Brown downfield. So, right? I mean,
no, absolutely, Chris. I think, listen, Philly has the combination of both receivers and a running game. And, Chris, they got 2 different running backs. They got Sanders, who can give you that more of that West Coast type of running back. And then they got the power back they come in with. I forget his name, Chris. But then they got the other guy who comes in, and he's more like a power back. So they can give you a variety of looks, even running the ball. I just don't think, and you said this, Chris, and last week I think we blame Cincinnati's coaching. We thought they stunk, right?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Kansas City, yes, they got a good pass rusher, but we don't think their defense is that good.
I will say this. I'll give him props.
Here we
for
go,
down
Joe.
the
He's
stretch.
gonna
No,
flop.
listen. No, I don't. I'm not flopping. I'm just saying. You know what? Shut up. I'm not flip flopping. You right away, Joe. He's right away. I'm gonna take over Catone's comments today. Then that's it. So no, but seriously, I will say all year long. You're right. You're absolutely right. But Kansas City defense did play a lot better down the stretch. You know, they improved as the season went. They played better down the stretch, and they played pretty good in the playoffs. Now, were they tested? Were they challenged? You know, did they have enough? I agree with Mark there. This will be the toughest challenge for them. Last 2 weeks ago should have been the toughest challenge for them in Cincinnati, but injuries, coaching, things like that, to me, prevented that from happening.
Now, Chris, the defensive coordinator for Kansas City, Spagnuolo, and we know who he coached, right? We know who he coached, right? Those 07 Giants. His MO.
Why? Why do you have to?
Well, because the Super Bowl's in Phoenix. I had to bring it up.
Ah, what a jerk. Go ahead.
Right? But his MO, Chris, not only is pressure, but it's also his defenses usually get better as the year goes on, right?
Yeah.
So this is typical of a Spagnuolo defense. They had some young guys in the secondary on this defense, right? So this is typical of a Spagnuolo defense. They usually are playing their best football later in the season, and you're going to hope that you survive until then. This team has. So it's a typical Spagnuolo defense, correct? Like in regards to how they've gotten better.
It's a lot of pressure packages. He likes to bring heat. He likes to bring pressure, and that may be a problem this week. Because you're dealing with a mobile quote, you're dealing with a guy that can get out, but not only can get out and hurts, is when he gets out and moves, his eyes stay downfield. You know, he's not like a Lamar Jackson, and once he gets out, that's it. He's gone. Jalen Hurts will keep his eyes downfield, and he'll look to deliver the ball to those guys, you know, Smith and Brown and guys that are coming open that way and any tight end. And so that pressure stuff, and Spagnuolo's pretty stubborn about it too. He'll keep coming. But Mark, the other side, looking at Kansas City's offense, you know, Philly's defense, to me, again, I go back to that Cincinnati game, and I think that whatever the game plan was for Cincinnati was poor, very poor. You can play. This is not the same Kansas City team that had Hill, Harding, you know, what is it? Hardman.
I don't think he's playing in the Super Bowl.
No, he's not going to play. He's not going to play. So no Hardman, no Hill, no Tyreek Hill. So you're left with Kelsey, Scanling. You're left with what's
Tony,
his name?
but he's hobbling.
Tony, he's hobbling, and Juju
Smith-Schuster,
who's not the same. My point is this: this is a team you can play man against. You can play man. You're not worried about Tyreek Hill now running those deep crosses that's just going to destroy you. You can play man, and as such, you can bang the crap out of Kelsey, or he doesn't like it. You can bang the crap out of Kelsey off the line. You can push him, nudge him, make it a tough release for him to get off the line. Do not allow him to free release. And I think that's what's going to happen. And then bracket him. Because to me, the keys to victory for Philly on defense are there's two guys you take away, and you're going to be surprised by the second one. Kelsey, obviously, and Pacheco. Okay. Those are the two guys you need to take out of this game.
Pacheco, for our viewers, is the little scat back, running back that runs all over the field, right?
Yep.
7th round draft pick, by the way, in the last draft, 7th round.
You liked him. I remember you talked about him.
And we just can't draft those guys, Chris. Why is that? I don't know, but we can't draft those guys. But anyway,
and
Chris, you bring up the key. Why is it that teams don't game plan with this particular Kansas City team, especially this coming week? No Hardman. You said there's no Hill. Now, in the second half of that Cincinnati game, Hardman got hurt. He was out. Why wouldn't you take Kelsey out? Why wouldn't you bracket design? Kelsey's not going to beat us today. You're going to beat us with the other guys you're going on the field. Why don't teams do that?
Because they don't listen to me. You know,
Belichick always did that. Always took Kelsey out of the game. Always.
Yeah. You there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of ways to do it. I mentioned one already where you can bump him, you can be physical with him at the line of scrimmage. The other way to do it is you allow the free release, but you go under coverage on him. You know, where you get somebody underneath, you get linebackers and they have athletic linebackers do the Eagles where they can get them. It's not like Bentley, you know, that slug. You have athletic linebackers that you can put in the throwing lanes. Now, the problem is the type of pressure package you're bringing against Kansas City, because Mahomes creates his own throwing lanes. You know, he moves around, he gets out there, and he throws Kelsey open. He gets Kelsey into a better throwing lane, and Kelsey finds the area in the zone. I played man. I would be playing a lot of man coverage this week. I would be bringing 90-degree pressure off the edges and push Mahomes right into his face. But for Kansas City to win, Mark,
on the Kansas City side of the ball,
well, I was going to ask you. I'm asking you from the Kansas City offensive perspective. What do they need to do to win?
Chris, I'm going to say, you brought up Pacheco. I think you're going to have to come up with some design runs. I think you're going to have to figure out a way to come up with. You mentioned Scantling. I think you're going to have to come up with some jet sweeps. Like, I think you're going to have to generate some plays that. Number one, can slow down. A lot of movement, a
lot of motion, a lot of formation.
Can slow down Philadelphia's pass rush, A, and B, possibly prevent some of what you're talking about taking Kelsey out of the game, because there's so much going on that you're confusing them, and now Kelsey can still sit in his spot and get the ball. I think you're going to see a lot of that tomorrow from Kansas City, because I think Philadelphia's defensive line is better than Kansas City's O-line. So I think you're going to see a lot of that type of stuff to try to loosen the game up for Kansas City's offense.
I put a lot of pressure on that ankle. So, Mark, how do you see this thing going on? Who you pick? And this gets us into Sunday spread. That, you know, it's right now, and again, I haven't checked it today, but it was 1.5. Philly's favored. 51 is the over. Who wins this game? Give me this prediction.
I like Philadelphia, Chris, and I know I told you right after the AFC Championship game, I said to you, Philadelphia is gonna wipe the floor with this team, because I just think Philadelphia's offense is gonna go up and down the field. I don't think Kansas City's defense is that good. I get what you're saying, Chris. I know they've improved. They have definitely improved. They can rush the passer with Jones. I get it. I just don't think that their second line of defense is that good. I don't think the game's going to be close. I think Philly's going to beat them I'd say Philly 37, Kansas City.
Big score.
Yep, Kansas City 24, 37.
So you
24.
like the over too?
I like the over because I think Philadelphia is gonna score a lot of points. A lot of points. I don't think Kansas City's defense is that good.
See, for me, and this brings us into some of these prop bets that are going on, you know?
Oh, here we go.
Because listen to this.
Look at you, prop bets. Look at them.
Well, because there's no other games to bet. This is it. You got to go within the game. You got to bet everything. Put it all, everything you want all season long. Dump it all on this game. But you know what? I like Philly too, but I like it to be a little closer because the more I look at this, and I look at two halves. And by the way, if you're going to bet these games, bet the spreads on each half. Look at two halves because Kansas City is not – they're one of the worst first half scoring teams in football all season long. Philly's one of the best or the best. So that first half spread, whatever it is, if it's a high spread, because Vegas knows this, then, yeah, take Kansas City. I mean, if it's a 7-point spread in the first half, yeah, go with Kansas City. But keep that in mind. Philly jumps out. Philly's going to jump out to a lead. But as we've seen the second halves all season, Kansas City, it flips. Kansas City is one of the best closing teams, and Philly doesn't close as well. So we've seen it all season long, Kansas City coming back in games and making it close. So that's why I think it's going to be a little closer. I think this is going to go under. Okay. I do. And I'm taking a 27. Tell me if I'm right in this. Let me think here, numbers wise. I'm thinking 24-21. Philly.
What's the over and under, Chris? 49.5?
51.
51?
But here's the bet that I really like. This is what I'm going to do this week. So I'm giving it all to you right now. Okay. I'm taking a teaser bet. Okay. So now what happens with a teaser bet is you get 6 points, but the percentage is not as good. So you don't get as much off the two. You're picking two things and they're giving you more points. So basically, I'm going to take Kansas City. Kansas City's getting 1.5 points. I'm going to take Kansas City getting 6 more points. So now they're getting 7.5 because I think it's going to be closer. And I'm also taking the under, and now the over under becomes 57. So take a look at that teaser. You don't get as much.
Can you do that with the over under? I didn't know you could do that with the over and under, Chris.
On DraftKings, you can. On the app I use, you can.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And so you take those two and you make it a 7.5 and you make it a 57 point. You take Kansas City, or you can go the other way. You know, you can make Philadelphia getting points if you wanted, or go down on the points.
If you're a real down and dirty gambler, you do it both ways and hope it lands in the middle. You take Philly getting 5.5, and you take Kansas City and hope the game ends at 4.
Right.
Philly wins by 4.
Well, those are the things I'm doing. And Mark, a couple before we move on.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. If you're gambling on this game, I know you like the prop bets and the teasers, Chris. Forget it. Load it up. Take everything you won. Philadelphia is a lock. -1.5. They're a lock.
There it is. You heard it right here. Mark, how about a couple of prop bets for our viewers out
Chris,
there?
how about the coin flip? Let's bet the coin flip.
No, forget that. I'm going to give you some value picks. Okay, here's some value picks. Just money picks. You know, where you just bet it. A MVP not being the quarterback. Non-quarterback MVP is a +300. Good value pick. Guys like Kelsey, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
You could see something like that happen. Chances are,
but if Kelsey wins it, Chris, they're going to give it to Mahomes because that means Mahomes was probably throwing the ball all over the field, right?
Right. Here's another one. Hurts to throw an interception, okay, and Hurts to throw the first interception. These are +100 and 114. Not bad.
Yep.
Good value
Not
pick.
bad.
Again,
That's not bad. That's a value
these are
pick.
values. I don't like this one. A missed field goal is +120. Either team. Not a bad. That's a good value pick with the way kicking is. Missed extra point +300.
Wow.
And look at Philly because that's happened to that kicker. Both teams miss a field goals +900. That's a value, but it's a lot. And here's the last one, Mark. Don't Stop the Music being the first song is a +500. Now, I didn't even know who the hell is performing, but they're making
Rihanna.
+500.
Wait a minute.
Rihanna is performing.
Joe, you got to get out on this one.
I don't know what the song is, but
if you want the real prop bet, and if you're the real degenerate gambler, you go for this one, the over and under on. So who's singing the national anthem? Chris Stapleton's singing this year, and it's a national anthem, and on average it sings about 1 minute and 43 seconds, right? So the over under is 1 minute and 59 seconds in length. That's what you got.
But didn't that close already? Those are early closing bets, so get it in because once they rehearse it, somebody out there knows. They all know. Somebody right now knows.
Land that last line, you know. They got to really show the vibrato. You know what I mean? Really,
so you know what? So throw $20 on. Don't Stop the Music.
Some dummy, Chris, a couple of years ago, videotaped the last rehearsal and knew what the time was. And instead of just going to blow their brains on the over/under because they knew how long it was going to take, they posted something on social media or some idiot, and they shut down the bet. So you couldn't bet the national anthem. They shut it down. The Vegas shut it down because of this idiot.
You got to be like Biff in Back to the Future and take that sports almanac book and put it in a safe somewhere and nobody even knows it exists, you know?
Right?
So listen, a lot of good bets out there, a lot of things to happen. Mark and I have given you our locks. Make sure you pay attention to those. Bet your brains out. And but you know what? Bet responsibly. I always say.
Do it responsibly.
Don't bet to make money, okay? Don't bet to make money. Bet because it's fun. Bet because you can. Okay. So Weekly Rewind was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. Hey, when we come back, Mark, you're going to have the floor. Catone's Comments is next.
It's the Special Sauce Podcast. You like the sauce? The sauce is good.
This is start off as finance. Train them, trust them, and let them lead.
With your host, Marcus Aurelius. Tune in to Special Sauce Podcast, wherever you podcast. What's your special sauce? Time for Catone Comments!
You know what really frustrates me? And I'm sure Joe is gonna have something to say about this. This week, I heard that they're gonna remake The Honeymooners. How do you remake The Honeymooners? That's impossible. You can't redo what that show was, right?
Oh, I agree.
That's all Hollywood seems to be doing is remakes. They remake it. You watch these shows now. They brought back Night Court. They bring back all these shows because they don't have a creative mind in the industry out there. Go out there, Joe. Go back and create something, would you? They don't have a creative bone to create something new and innovative that people will watch. I mean, you don't see somebody, an artist, duplicating the Mona Lisa. You can't. It's illegal. It's fraud. You can't do that. You don't see somebody recreating these beautiful pictures or these things like these statues. You can't recreate those or remake those. They're once and they're done. But the Hollywood and the movie industry, that's all they do. They do remakes. They do re-edits. They do remakes. They do variations of the same stuff. When I heard The Honeymooners this week they were going to do a remake of The Honeymooners, that was it. I snapped. I've never heard of such a thing. You don't have an original thought in your head to create something that people would watch, like, enjoy. You're going to remake that. They remake movies. They're remaking everything. It's crazy. Maybe they should remake me. Oh, my God. Could you imagine another me? What? That would be beautiful. Beautiful, Chris.
They broke the
Wouldn't
mold.
it?
When they made you, they broke
Yeah.
the mold.
Come on. But, Joe, maybe you can answer that question. What is it with the remakes? I've had enough for the remakes. I'm done.
No, I totally 100% agree. 100%, especially when it comes to like characters and stuff. Like I always use Forrest Gump as the example because like they always make these remakes, yada yada yada. Now I get it when, like, let's say Superman in the 80s, right, and redoing it now, you go, oh, they have better special effects now. They can do digitally stuff, amazing stuff digitally. In fact, I could have YouTube there digitally right now, with the stuff that they have. But when you recreate a character like somebody like Forrest Gump, it's like, no, you can't do that because, like you said, it's a Mona Lisa. It's a one of a kind. You can't recreate the Honeymooners. That's a one of a kind. That's a Jackie Gleason one of a kind piece of art. You can't recreate that. You know what I mean? But no money in the world.
You can't recreate a character like Mark.
You can't.
When they made Mark, they broke the mold.
But no,
Talk
he's right.
about
Jackie,
one of the great characters of all time.
he's right, though. How do you recreate Jackie Gleason's character? You can't.
No, every Sunday nights, I have a channel out here called Memorable Entertainment TV, right? And every Sunday night, the Honeymooners are on. It has all these shows: Carol Burnett, Mary Mason, Kojak the Night Stalker, all the Lost in Space. I love that show. Super Saturday Sci-Fi nights. That's every night. Anyway, I watch the Honeymooners every Sunday night. You're right, Mark. Can't recreate that. And by the way, it's so funny you mentioned Night Court. I watched all the episodes. I caught up last night just because I was interested because I used to like that show.
I did too.
It was funny, but the only reason why there was any humor in that show was John Larroquette, who's the only member of the original show that's in this one, and he's the only reason why it's at all funny. So you're right.
Yep. Yeah.
Can't do it.
Right. Absolutely.
I agree. Joe agrees, and I think everybody out there will probably agree. Let us know in Heated Hotline what you think of Mark's take on the remake of The Honeymooners. So Catone's Comments was presented by Corso Law Group, CorsoLawGroup.com. Hey, listen, when we come back, we're going to go some B's and C's. Trade deadline pack came and went for the NBA. We need to talk about that right after this.
It's that time again for a timeout for a message from one of our sponsors. No one ever thinks they will be in the need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people all across this great country who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. So whether it's a traffic ticket or if you need reduced DUI or more serious issues, call or go online to CorsoLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help you. Corso Law Group.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. And listen, we want to get back to some New England's talk, right? We've been talking a lot of Super Bowl, a lot of honeymooners and TV shows and all this other stuff. Let's get back to New England sports. Let's do some B's and C's, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, yeah, I love that. I do.
I like it.
So
I like
full.
it.
Get that, you know. So, Mark, the trade deadline for the NBA has come and gone, Mark, right? And so we'll talk Celtics here. You know, they make a move. They trade for Mike Muscala, right? Muscala from Oklahoma City. They made that trade, and they gave up Justin Jackson and 2 second-round picks. Not a lot. To get this guy. So, first of all, what do you make of that trade? I have some stats on him I can give us, but what do you make of that trade? And did we do enough?
No, typical Celtic trade. Gave up, don't want to give anything up at the trade deadline, and you get a player who's what? He ain't doing. Listen, if you want to get somebody that plays that position, you don't need a stretch four. You need a banger. You need somebody that could go out there. If Williams is hurt or if Williams has to have limited minutes to get in the playoffs because he wears down, you need somebody that can go under there, bang a little bit, get rebounds, score some points when you need it. They didn't get that type of a player, Chris. I don't think a stretch like that is going to help them, stretch four. That's not helping them. That's not what they needed. You got Giannis. You got Embiid. You got all these guys that you're going to need somebody in there to play with in case Williams wears down. Or, listen, Horford, at his age, Chris, at any given time, they could say, well, he's hurt. He's going to miss, significant time. You got nobody off the bench that can help fill that role under there. And that's what I thought they should have got, not what they went and traded for.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not going to give you that presence underneath that you're talking about to get rebounds and things like that. But, Mark, I got to be honest with you. I like the trade. I like the trade because it's cheap. You didn't give up a ton to get it. Look,
that's their MO.
Yeah, but you know what? There's not a hell of a lot they really did need on this team. And I get what you're saying about the injuries and Robert Williams and so on. But if you look at the type of basketball this team plays, and look, what you've forgotten about basketball, I've yet to learn. And I'll admit that. But the type of game that the Celtics play, don't you look how nice I am to him, and he's such a jerk to me, Joe.
No, I would have went and got. I know what you're going to say, Chris, but I would have went and got Mo Bamba because he would have fit the role more of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but if you look at the type of spread the floor type of offense that you a guy like, okay, so you talk about the injury situation or the Al Horford getting tired and all that, but one of the big things about Al Horford in his game is that outside shooting too. That he provides you that three-point shooting.
But he can go in there, Chris, and play some defense and grab rebounds for you too.
He can. And I don't think this guy can't. But you have to understand, this guy, a guy like this guy's only playing if there's an injury, okay, or if they're up big, if they're down big, if there's an injury or there's foul trouble. He's cheap. They didn't have to give up a lot to get him. Like I said, he's a good energy guy. I like the 39% from 3-point range because I think that's where his value comes in for this. It's odd because he only averages like 14 minutes a game. I'm sorry, he only averages 6 points a game, but he shoots 39% from 3 points. So he's obviously not shooting them a ton. But I think he allows you to get some more spacing on the floor because of that 39%. So when you put him out on the key and the arc, you're going to have to deal with him. You know, doubling off him isn't going to work. It won't work with that guy. But getting back to what you're saying, and I have a question for you then. We didn't do enough. You talked about Bamba. I didn't like that. I thought they would have to give too much up to get him. But when you look at the Eastern additions, okay, for the Eastern Conference, you know, Celtics added who we talked about. But the Bucks add Crowder. Philadelphia adds McDaniels. Cleveland didn't do anything. Brooklyn's a mess now, so forget Brooklyn. But Toronto added Patel. Now, out of these people, out of all these players that went to that, as far as being in the East now, is there anybody on that list that you would have said, I wish we had that one instead of him? Who do you know, other than Bamba?
I would have taken Crowder because Crowder is going to give you somebody who once in a while can get hot. He can play defense. He can get rebounds. He gets dirty. He gets nasty under there. And that's another player that Milwaukee just added that's going to be kicking, scratching, and elbowing you, even playing the style you claim they play. He's going to get under your skin. He's going to play defense. He's going to put a knee in somebody's groin. That's what we're lacking, Chris. And sometimes in a 7-game series, you need that to get by a team like maybe a Milwaukee or you know what I mean? And we don't have that type of a player on the floor. And I honestly think it was a mistake not getting it.
So you think that some of these moves, that one particularly moves the needle?
I think Crowder is going to serve Milwaukee.
For Milwaukee?
I think Crowder is going to serve Milwaukee well in the playoffs. You watch.
See, to me, if you were going to make a different move, it would have been, and I never say this guy's name right, so I'm sorry, but Podol, the center out of San Antonio. The thing with him is you would have had to give up first round pick. You would have had to give up probably Pritchard, somebody like that. Which
I wouldn't have given up a first round pick.
Deal. But I think that's what Toronto actually gave him. So I think I have to go back and look. So that would be the only guy that I saw move into the East that I would have said. Otherwise, I don't know that anything really scares the hell out of me that went on where I can look at one of these other teams and say, they've really, really closed the gap. We'll talk about the Western side in a second because that's a whole different animal of what went on there. But so after this trade deadline, Vegas thinks that the Celtics are still they're still plus 340 or something like that.
Yep.
And now the Suns have moved up to number 2 and plus 450. But after the trade deadline, where do you see Boston? You still see them as the number 1 team, the best team, or what?
I do. I still see them as number 1 seed, but I would have liked to have seen them do a little more.
I'm talking about, in the East. Go ahead. Sorry.
I still think they're the team to beat, but I would have liked to have seen them do more. I still think they're the team to beat. But I think you could have made your road a little easier by picking up a different type of a piece. But I still think they're the favorites, Chris. The big thing with the Celtics, Chris, is I don't necessarily know if this coach manages the minutes of guys like Tatum well enough. And in the playoffs, Chris, they may wear down because I don't understand why Tatum plays so many minutes in games that are blowouts.
Yeah, that's the one thing about his inexperience that you see showing up now is we talked about this last week, the combinations. Yeah. What are the combinations of the bench guys? You know, his unwillingness to really switch things up a lot. And again, how do you manage the rest? How do you manage the minutes in the game? Seems to listen to the players a little more than Udoka did and certainly Stevens. So, and that I guess comes with the territory of having a rookie head coach doing this. Now, Mark, talking about them in the whole NBA now, because we look at what happened in the West, okay? And let me just throw a couple of people out there. The Nuggets get Bryant, which made them better. The Grizzlies get Kennard. Sacramento didn't do anything. Mavericks get Kyrie Irving. Now let's go to the 2 big ones, okay? Kyrie Irving goes to Dallas. Kevin Durant goes to Phoenix. I've heard this week that those two guys do more damage to the Celtics apart on different teams than they did together. Do you agree with that? And do you now think that the Suns are the best team in basketball?
No, I don't think the Suns are the best team in basketball. I think they're the best offensive team possibly if everybody's healthy in basketball. But I think they don't play. Those guys don't play defense, Chris. Durant was always a good defender, but he's lost a step with all of the injuries. He doesn't play as well on defense as he once did. So, yes, I think if healthy, Phoenix may offensively be the best team in the league offensively. But where the Celtics are better is the Celtics, and I'm going to use your guy, Chris, with a healthy Marcus Smart.
Yep.
With a healthy Marcus Smart.
Not enough, huh? Not enough is talked about that.
Right?
Well, go ahead.
I know you want to talk about it,
there.
but let me finish this. But with a healthy Marcus Smart, I think the Celtics are a better defensive team than Phoenix. For that reason, I still think the Celtics should be the favorite to win it over Phoenix. But I know you want to talk about Marcus Smart.
Well, they better be. They better be defensively because you're talking Booker, Chris Paul, Durant, and don't forget Aiden.
Yeah,
don't forget the center. Okay,
I know.
There's not no big hullabaloo was made this week in Phoenix.
But
about
they also
Durant,
gave up what they gave up though, Chris. Basically, they have no bench now, so they've got five guys. They're gonna have to beat you with the five guys,
and that's where the Celtics get them. And so your coach at Phoenix is gonna have to be real good at managing those guys. And if do you need all of them in the starting lineup at once? And is there going to be enough ball to go around over there too in Philly? But I agree with you on the defense. By the way, Felger called this city a Mickey Mouse town because nobody's saying anything about Durant. You know, he's probably right. He's a lot of transient people. But getting to Marcus Smart, Mark's point. They're three. What are they? 4-4 now. They won that game the other night. They're 4-4 without Smart. Now, that 4 wins, I mean, they only had 13 losses when he went out.
Yeah.
So 4 is a huge percentage of that. So nobody talks about that, Mark. No one talks about the loss of this guy.
I mean, he's a catalyst. He's their catalyst on defense, Chris. He gets the energy up. He gets the intensity up. But you're right. I was always one of those proponents of, hey, get rid of him. Yeah. But he gives them an intensity and something on defense, Chris, and a look and a feel on defense that they need. And they're definitely missing it right now.
Reigning defensive player of the year, and it shows right now. It definitely shows. So we'll see what happens down the stretch now in the second half. Trade deadline's gone. Let's see how the Celtics, if they're going to crawl to the finish or if they're going to pull away. Let's see what happens. And on the other side, we'll talk Bruins just for a couple of minutes. They're coming out of their break now. In fact, they're going to be playing today or tonight and starting back up again. We talked about how they exited to the break. Wasn't so hot, but they got that last win. But some of the Carolina Lightning, Panthers, those teams that they played against had some pretty bad losses there. The trade deadline for this team doesn't happen until March 3rd. So they still have several weeks to go before that happens. But how are they going to, how do you see them handling the second half with the record for wins or, rest?
So that's
or
another
the trade
team,
deadline?
Chris, that I think the coach is going to have to manage minutes because they're an older team. Right. So in order to keep guys like Bergeron and those guys fresh for the playoff run, even Marchand, you're going to have to manage, Chris, your lines and who's getting how many minutes some of those guys on those top lines are getting. Because as you know, the Stanley Cup playoff drive is grueling. And with those older guys, you're going to have to manage those legs. And I would like to see them bring in somebody, Chris, in the trade deadline. I get nervous about these guys because about the Florida Panthers and Carolina and Tampa. So, Chris, what do you think they would need to bring in if they're going to bring in some reinforcements for the trade deadline? What do you think? What type of?
Well, I like that bigger defenseman. Talking about Luke Shen out of Vancouver. So what I'm hearing right now, the two teams that are in the running now for him are Calgary and the Bruins. That's a trade they need to make because you need it for depth. You need to put him. You can put him next to Grizzlick, guy like that, and you can really have that guy. He's got 74 hits. He's a real banger. He'll move guys around. That's the kind of guy they need to protect leads, to get to maybe have that fourth line out there more offensively so you can rest the guys that you're talking about, so you can protect the lead at the net.
And when
That's
you play a
something to be
team like
looking for.
Carolina, Chris, in a 7-game series, you're going to need a guy like that to go out there and bang.
Yep. You need physical. So we'll see what happens. A lot more to come next week on this. Want to hear from you in Heated Hotline. But Corso and Catone was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. Listen, get on this week. Listen, watch all of our shows up for you. Follow us. Give us that thumbs up. And make sure you subscribe and come back next week. 7 p.m. Eastern for Corso and Catone. We'll recap the Super Bowl, give our breakdown and our post coverage of that game, and break down the Patriots' offensive needs, off-season needs, as that's going to be coming to a head, and more Bruins Celtics talk. Of course, Catone's comments, you never want to miss that. And anything, your heated hotline calls, whatever you bring to the table, we'll be ready. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Find Corso and Catone on iHeartRadio, iTunes, or wherever you podcast. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, Corso and Catone, and catch the chaos at 7 p.m. on Saturday.